Hello, I'm Reverend Dr. Terry Richardson. It's my pleasure being with you this morning. I want to say thank you first and foremost, each and every one of you, for joining us on the webinar. I think it's a very important opportunity that we have together to just learn some things and become aware of what I believe is a great program out there for the faith community and for our community at large. You know, I've been a pastor for over 30 years, and I often and frequently get the question, what's the relevance of churches and faith-based institutions in the community these days? And so when we ask the question about relevance of our faith-based community organizations in community, we must ask ourselves, well, what is the purpose of faith-based in the first place? When we really look at the relevance of church and the commission that God gives to the church and faith-based communities, nothing captures it like Matthew's Gospel, the 5th chapter, where Jesus says to the church, to his disciples, you are the salt of the earth and you are the light of the world. Now, what Jesus was saying, he wasn't making a suggestion that the disciples should be the salt of the earth or the light of the world, nor was he giving it up to them to make the decision if they were going to be the salt of the earth or the light of the world. He was actually giving them a command. He said, you are the salt of the earth. I placed you in position, and the church as an institution in community, to be the light of that community and to be the salt of that community. And salt has the ability to preserve. Salt has the ability to cause things to live and cause things to sustain themselves. And light gives light in dark places. And so that's what the churches are called to be. That's what you and I are called to be in the faith-based community. We are called to be in the community, to be visible to the community, to be the light of the community, and to have impact within the community. In Luke 10, Jesus gives a parable. He gives a parable that is known as the Good Samaritan parable. There's a parable where there's a man who got caught up with some thieves, and the thieves robbed him and beat him and left him for dead on the side of the road. A priest walks past and sees the man lying on the side of the road, but decides to keep going. A Levite walks past, sees the man on the side of the road, but decides to keep going. And then there's a third man that lied on the side of the that walked past as the man was on the side of the road, but decided to stop. Now, he was on his way somewhere. He was on his way, the text says, but he decided to stop. He made an initiative himself to stop. He decided to engage this man himself. Now, he had his own agenda. Probably took out his cell phone at the time and called ahead of time and said, you know what, I'm gonna be a little late to the meeting because there's a needy man here on the side of the road and I see him and I just cannot pass by him without doing something. And so what's the difference between the priest, what's the difference between the Levite and that's just simple Good Samaritan stopping? Well, first of all of them saw the need that this man had, but only one saw him for who he was. And so he had an eyesight, he had ability to see what was going on, taking time out of his own busy schedule, out of his own world to see the need of someone else. And that's what you and I have been placed for. That's the reason of the church. That's the purpose of God's church. That's the purpose of him raising up a church and putting it in community so that the community can be light and be concerned about the welfare and the well-beings of others within community. Folks, there are people dying on the side of the road. There are people hurting on a daily basis, and it takes someone to take time out to see the pain. And I wonder how many of our faith-based institutions actually are able to see what's happening in their communities. Are we able to see the number of joblessness and the number of people who are out of work, the number of homeless people that are on the streets? Are we able to see the plight of young men in our community, particularly black young men, who more are in jail than are in college? The number of dropouts. Are we able to see the young lady who's been pregnant 2 times already and society has given up on them? I believe God has placed us in the community not just to be introverted and have a personal faith, but to also have a public faith. A public faith includes being concerned about society. God is not just concerned about our own personal salvation. He's also concerned about the salvation of community. Where community hurts, God is concerned, and God is looking to churches like yours or faith-based institutions like yours or people like you and me who were once on the side of the road, once were bleeding, once were hurting, and people walked past us. We were hurting because of our finances. We were hurting because of someone walked out of our lives. We were hurting because of we lost a loved one. So many things we were hurting because there was our life was one way on one day, and by the time that afternoon came, we heard some devastating news. No one stopped. No one took time to care. And I believe God has placed faith-based institutions in its community with people who care. So in order to have an impact in community, in order to be just as concerned about the welfare of lives in community and situations of community as God is, remember, Jesus said, you're the light of the world. Light shines in dark places. You are the salt of the earth. In Matthew 28, he told his disciples, we must go. We must go to where people are and not wait for them to come to us. We must find people where they're hurting. We must find those who are lying in the middle of the street because they've been robbed and no one cares. No one took the time to be concerned about widows. No one took the time to be concerned about individuals who have been lost in society. We must go to where people are. That's the commission, to go to where they are and find them where they are. There's a reason you are in the place you are. There's a reason you have the education and degrees you have. There's a reason you live in the neighborhood you live in, to go to the school you go to, or work in the facility you work in, because God wants to use you right where you are and to be concerned and to see the number of people who are hurting in our community, see the number of homeless people walking the streets, see the number of young men standing on the corners with their pants down, see the number of individuals who are increasingly suffering from all different types of psychological and medical situation, see the increasing number of sickle cell anemia patients that is a growing concern in our community today. And why not, if we are seeing these individuals hurt and we know that we are to be the light of the world and the salt of the earth, what would it look like if we actually came together to address things like homelessness or even the increasing number of sickle cell anemia patients in our community? What it would look like if our houses of worship came together, if we stripped ourselves of all the titles and all the introverted kind of activities that we do and actually address some of these issues by collaboratively coming together? What if we had a leadership summit and ask ourselves, what issue can we take up, and how can my house of worship touch and agree with your house of worship? How can we come together to address one particular issue? That's why I'm so excited about working with a few individuals like pharmaceutical companies that have actually come together to address one particular issue, and that is the issue of the growing amount of cases of sickle cell anemia patients in our country. So as we're seeing, it is not a community issue where the church should be irrelevant or even invisible to some of the social challenges and problems that are out there. So if we did come together and partner with some of these pharmaceutical companies, in reality, it is unheard of that corporations, big companies would even consider being concerned about a social issue. Yet they are. I'm excited because they are. And when I found out that there are companies out there that would come together and are willing to collaborate with other faith-based institutions and other institutions in the community, I jumped on board, because I believe and know that God is concerned with the increased number of sickle cell anemia patients that are showing up. They're in our congregation, they're in our pew, family members of our churchgoers and faith-based worshipers have family members that they are struggling with these things on their own. If we came together, if the pharmaceutical companies came together, along with the banks and along with the hospitals and along with the churches and the synagogues and the mosques and the temples, if we came together to tackle this one issue, imagine the relief that it will give to those who sit in our pews each and every weekend for our worship services. Imagine the relief that people will feel that there are organizations out there that took the time to see us on the side of the road, see us helpless when no one else would stop and ask questions, how you're doing, when no one else would actually come and help doctor our wounds, that there are faith-based institutions and pharmaceuticals out there that have decided to collaborate together. Imagine all of us coming together. Imagine if we all just blitz this growing issue and concern that we have in our community. Then we could find a cure. We can help relieve the pain, and we can help those in our community to know that, you know what? Churches and faith-based institutions are actually relevant. They actually care about the salvation of our community. They care about those who are hurting. They care about those who are hungry. They care about those who are suffering. Friends, we are the salt of the earth, and we are the light of the world. But if we remain introverted and focus only on a personal salvation, then we will miss the fact that God is concerned about the lives that are out in our community. and how he chose us to be right where we are and wherever we find individuals to be concerned about them and help bring relief. Why should we do it? Well, one, he showed mercy for us when we were down and out, when we were beside ourselves, when no one else cared about us. He came to our aid, and he said, likewise, I want you to go to other people's aids. I want to use you to be my arms and to be my hands in community and help others to know that they too are loved. So how in the faith community, if we're going to be true to being the light of the world and the salt of the earth, if we're really going to be just as concerned about God as God is about us and about the commission he leaves us, to not just stay within the churches and our synagogues and in our houses of worship, but to go into the community and to help make a difference, to find those individuals who are on the side of the road aching and in pain and wanting others to take time to notice them and to lend a helping hand. What can we do? I am sending out a call to action to all of our churches, to all of our houses and worships, that we too come together. First of all, by coming together and helping to share the news that there are newer and more advanced clinical trials that are going on today, that those that we may know who are amongst us, amongst our community, our neighbors, our houses of worship, our families, and our friends. I personally have partnered with pharmaceutical companies like Prolong Pharmaceutical and other companies and faith-based institutions to help tackle this issue, to address the issue of the increasing number of sickle cell cases that are showing up in our communities. And I want to call you, the church and the faith-based community, to call of action as well, because we are that light of the world and we are the salt of the earth. Asking you to join with us to help address this issue. How can you help? Help spread the word. Spread the word that there are new clinical trials, more advanced clinical trials out there. You can help us by being true to Proverbs 29 that says, where there is no vision, my people perish. Or what about Hosea, where God says, my people perish because of a lack of knowledge? Now, none of these texts mention anything about sickle cell and the episodes that a sickle cell patient will go through, but the principles are the same. The principle is that God gives wisdom to those who want wisdom. God helps us to understand that if we do come together, if we have a common vision, if we have a common goal, and if we all become knowledgeable about things like these great advanced clinical trials, then he will meet us in our faith. He will meet us in our work. We are the light of the world, and God is just concerned about the salvation in our community and bringing healing and hope to those who would not otherwise have it because no one is paying attention to them. We are the salt of the earth.